Hey everyone, okay, so in this video we're going to talk about importing audio and video into Pro Tools. And the first thing that you should probably check is the first place you should probably check is Setup and then Session. That will tell you, it will bring up a dialog box, and it will tell you the sample rate and bit depth of your session. Any files that are not at the same sample rate as your session will need to be converted. And that's not the end of the world, but you just need to be aware that that is going to happen. And the place to check to see what your session setup is again in Setup and then Session. So that will give you some of that data, especially sample rate, bit depth. When we looked at the Pro Tools dashboard when starting a new session, file types are the two main native file formats for Pro Tools. So those are the two file types that Pro Tools can use without any problems, and that is WAV and AIFF. And we pretty much always use WAV. Those types of files will not have to be converted on the way into Pro Tools. So Pro Tools can import MP3s, but it will need to convert an MP3. And they're never, MP3s are compressed audio anyway, so we want to avoid using those anyway. Okay, there are two video formats that Pro Tools can use without converting, and that is QuickTime and Avid MXF files. Others will have to be converted, and it's kind of a limited list what it will convert. But there's pretty much always a way to get the video file into Pro Tools if you need to, although you might have to jump through a few hoops. Okay, so let's have a look at the Import Audio dialog. So that is at File, Import, and then Audio. And you will get a dialog that is a little bit different depending on whether you're on a Mac or a PC. But they'll both pretty much accomplish the same thing. You'll get some sort of file browser that lets you look through your computer to look for files that you might want to import. So maybe I'll grab my recording example and look at audio files, and I'll see some audio files here. And then there's typically these two windows that are side by side that say Clips in Current File and Clips to Import. And a little bit of information about the file when you click on it will also show up in these other windows. And again, they'll be in different places depending on whether you're on a PC or a Mac. So it will also tell you if it needs to be converted. So one of the things that we'll get is if there's an MP3 or an MP4 or something, it will say, hey, sample rate for such and such file must be converted to be used because it's not the right type of audio file or it's not the right sample rate. Okay, so a couple other things to be aware of when we're adding a file into a session. Okay, so a couple important things about these buttons here when it's time to import. So one is I can add all, and that will add all the files that are loaded here in the Clips in Current File. And then we can add all or add, and then we can copy or copy all. So you almost always want to copy. I know that the highlighted one is add, but this is one of the worst ways to add it into your session. And the problem is when you click add, it just puts a pointer, a little arrow to wherever that file is on your hard drive. It doesn't put it in the audio files folder where you need it to be for your session. So then you give your session folder to someone else to work on, and they're suddenly missing all those files because they're somewhere else on your computer. And adding it just tells the session where it's located on your computer. So if they're not on your computer, they're never going to be able to find that file. So it's almost always better to force it to copy the file into your audio files folder in your session. So almost always choose copy there. So there's another thing that you can do here while we're looking at these tracks. You can play back and audition some of these. All right, so you can go through and check these out. Any audio files, you can audition them to check what's on them, which is kind of nice. So you can double check what's on them. And then hopefully you're going to click copy. And then you'll click done to finish the process. And if you've chosen copy, or maybe you accidentally hit add on one of these and you're like, oh wait, I don't want to add. Well, you can select it and remove it from the items to import. Right? So I'm going to copy this drums 01 into my session. So I'm going to have a couple choices once I click done here. So one is, the first thing is, where do you want to put it? that will default to the audio files folder in your current session. So this recording example session that's up, it will automatically default there. That's almost always where you want to put it, right? We want to keep everything in the same set of folders so that we can move things around really easily and keep everything organized. So I'm going to just click open on that. That chooses that file folder, and then it's going to give us a couple of other options. One is, do I want to put the new audio in on a new track, or do I want to put it in the clip list over here, and then I can deal with that audio later whether I want to drag it into my session. So if I choose new track, I have a couple options about where it will go. One is just the beginning of the session on a blank track, a brand new track. At a selection point, which would mean I need something over here selected, and then spot, you can specify, it'll give you a dialog that will let you specify exactly what point in time you need to put it. So that's for the audio on the new track. If you do clip list, that of course disappears because all it's going to do is put the audio over in the clip list like this. Now I have that audio available in my session, and then I can drag it and put it down wherever I want to. Let's do it the other way just so we can see it. Let me make a selection. I'm going to select right here. I want the guitar track to line up right with this, the beginning of this clip selection. So I'm going to do my import one more time and pull it into a new track at that selection. So I've selected that spot, File, Import, Audio. I'm going to just grab one of these random guitar tracks, hit Copy, never add, unless you're absolutely sure you're going to be able to keep track of that file on your hard drive. And then, so it's going to copy in. I hit done. I'm going to choose where to put it. I'm going to go with the default, which is audio files folder. The dialog is going to open up. And then I'm going to choose new track. And then again, with the new track, I have choices of where it's going to go. I'm going to go with selection. And that is going to put my new audio on a new track right at this point on that selected clip. So I'm going to hit OK. I get a brand new track. It's also named by whatever the clip name was. So the clip name was Guitar 01, so it just named the track that way. And you can see it placed that audio right at that spot where I had selected that clip. Pretty cool. Okay, another way to import audio from some connected drive or from your hard drive into a Pro Tools session is by a Workspace browser. So we can go to Window, and then down to Workspace or New Workspace, and then just choose Default. That will open up a Workspace browser window. And I'm going to just go into maybe my desktop somewhere. Okay, you'll notice that since these are audio files and they have generated some waves, because I've played them back at some point recently, I can play them back and audition them here as well, just like we did in the audio import dialog. Another cool thing about this is actually if this metronome thing is on, it will sync it when it plays back to your session tempo. So you can get a sense of how Pro Tools is going to convert the time to when you pull in, which is kind of cool. And I think my session tempo is slower. And you can hear it's giving a little bit. It's a little bit of artifacts in there, but it did change the tempo when I clicked that metronome button, so kind of a cool feature of the Workspace browser. Now when it comes to bringing in the audio into your session, so remember how we have that issue of adding versus copying in the import media? The same problem happens here, but it's a different process. So if I just drag this bass track into my clip list here, it will, if it's not necessary to convert it, and I don't think it needed to here. This was just a regular WAV file and it was at the right sample rate. It will put a pointer again. It will not put this bass track into the audio files folder. Okay, so here's that Workspace browser, still open, still in the right folder. So I didn't need to convert it, so what we ended up with is a pointer rather than it converting. Now if you want to force it to copy, you can option click the track while you drag it into the clip list, and that will do the same thing. And now I know that bass track is going to be in my audio files folder where it belongs. Then I can also add new tracks from the Workspace browser in the same way. So clicking and dragging. So I can drag this bass track onto this audio track. Notice I can't drag it onto the MIDI track. It only, because it's actual audio, it needs to be dragged onto audio, right? An audio track. So that I can do. But again, it's going to copy it. It's going to add it. It's just going to be a link. But again, it's just going to be a link to that audio if it doesn't have to convert it. So I'm going to bring my Workspace browser up. And if I want to make sure that that is going to actually copy into my audio files folder, I can do the same thing. Option, click and drag, and now I know it will force copy that into my audio files folder. Now the other thing that we can do from the Workspace browser, which is just like the import audio dialog, is I can actually drag this and get a new track. So I'm going to try it with the stereo and see what we get. So notice that I pulled it past my track list. If I let go, it actually gives me a new stereo audio track of these left and right channels of this bass track. So all I had to do was click and drag into the gray area, and I'm going to delete that track and do it another way. So that's kind of a cool trick. I'm going to do it this way this time. Let's bring this to front again. Now this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold down Shift while I drag it, and I'm just going to drop it anywhere in the edit window. Notice it did the same thing. It created a brand new track with the audio that I wanted on it, and it knew the kind of audio I wanted because I dragged 2 channels into my audio file folder. So let's see. Bring to front. Okay. And it knew exactly which kind of track to import because I brought in 2 WAV files that were mono, and I brought them in at the same time, so it gave me a stereo track because my session is set up as interleaved. So if I only drag 1 in, I should get a mono track, right? A single channel track. And again, Shift and drag, no matter where it goes. Notice it's going to pop it at the bottom as a new track. And there's our new mono track too. So it kind of does a good job of guessing what I'm pulling in and creating the right kind of track for it. Okay, so let's import some video into Pro Tools. So first thing I'm going to do is make sure that I'm going to go set up to playback engine, and I'm going to make sure that the video engine is enabled. And it is, it's been checked. That will allow me to import and to playback video in Pro Tools. Now standard Pro Tools will only let you have 1 video at a time in a Pro Tools session. So you don't want to do video editing and things in here. You really want this to just be 1 final video track and you're doing audio stuff, right? So here I go, import, file, import video, and I'm going to try and grab some kind of MOV, QuickTime movie. There's my son with his dinosaurs, that should be good. Okay, we'll get a video import dialog. I'm going to choose new track, session start, and just click OK. And it will, again, just like an audio import, say, hey, where do you want to put this? I'm going to put it in the audio files folder, I guess. Seems to me there should be a video files folder that would have defaulted. And then you will get a little preview window, which if you close that, you can find it again in window, and then video, and you'll get that guy back. Then you will also see little snippets of some of the clips in your edit playlist. So if you click at different places in your playlists, the video will update for that location, right? That spot. And you can also play back by hitting spacebar and work on your audio while your video plays back. Pretty appropriate audio for dinosaurs attacking. Cool. So that's kind of it for video importing. Again, you can drag video around a little bit. You can move it around in your session a little bit. You can adjust that window. But in general, you're not going to want to do too much editing. You can't do editing of video in Pro Tools. You're really going to edit audio to fit a video track that you've imported. And again, just 1 video track per standard Pro Tools session. All right, that's about that. See you in the next one.